Good day everyone and welcome to another session here in our subject EDED 310 or Seminar and Educational Planning. I am your reporter for this session. I am Daddy R. Flores and I am going to discuss to you the topic Educational Planning and Decentralized Educational Planning in the Philippines. This is in partial fulfillment of the requirements for this subject under the supervision of no other than our kind and loving professor, Dr. Walter Galarosa. So now, let us start our discussion and our topic, educational planning and decentralized planning in the Philippines. Before we start our discussion, let us first enumerate the different objectives that we are going to have for this session. So at the end of the discussion or the session, all of you should be able to, the first one is determine educational planning and decentralization in education. The second one, you need to analyze and distinguish the educational planning in the Philippines and the decentralized planning in education in the Philippines. And lastly, you are going to share your own insights and understanding about the topic.
Malia has dreams, big dreams. To achieve them, she must have access to a quality education. This is her fundamental right. Beyond this classroom, a whole system unfolds from pre-primary to adult learning. Its goal? To help Malia and her peers build a bright future. An education system includes everything from the human resources to the policies and financing that supports it. But this system doesn't just appear like magic. Without planning, the whole education system is threatened, along with Malia's dreams. So what is educational planning? It starts with all of the relevant actors coming together to create a vision for education. They anticipate the future with the resources of today. Different tools are used throughout the planning process to highlight any problem areas and help with financing and resource allocation. At the end, the stakeholders have turned the vision into a plan of action for Malia and her peers. But let's start now, because Malia can't wait. The government and education officials must lead the way and believe in the plan. It must also stay responsive to the local context, such as the geography or demography of the local population. And what if a natural disaster hits or a conflict erupts? Planning for resilience allows the system to stay afloat. When an education system is carefully planned, the fate of millions of children is protected, and Malia can build the life of her dreams.
Before we begin with our topic, let us first define what is educational planning. Educational planning is an instrument for providing the needed coordination and direction of the different components of an educational system. It also ensures that widely accepted long-term goals, such as the universal primary education, are approached more objectively. It provides realistic appraisal of the country's resources. The country's resources in terms of human, unhuman, and institutional, which are all important factors in the successful implementation of the plan. Educational planning is also concerned with the problems on how to make the best use of the limited resources allocated to education in view of the priorities given to the different stages of education of the different sector of education and the need of the economy. Educational planning is one of the vital components in attaining the quality basic education, which is aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals number 4 of the United Nations that seek to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education that promote lifelong learning opportunities for all, or that is what we call the education for all. DepEd, as the primary agency tasked by the government to deliver basic educational services, ensure that the programs, projects, and activities implemented passing the rigorous planning process before the implementation of any programs, projects, and activities related to education. Each plan is carefully crafted to the attainment of the department's mission, vision, and goals. And that is what educational planning is. Now, let's talk about the context of educational planning in the Philippines. According to the Department of Education, today's educational planning in the Philippines can claim an unbroken history even before the establishment of our formal educational system. During the pre-Spanish era and the period of more than 4 centuries when the Philippines was in a possession of Spain and the United States, there was a long and routine sort of educational planning, though it was not visible enough to compare with the present educational planning activities. At the minimum, they had to estimate how many students there would be, how many classrooms, teachers, desks, and books that would be needed to serve them adequately, how much money this would require, where the money would come from, and how and when it would be spent. This process was educational planning, which was taken for granted as a normal part of the school administration's job. Much more in some instances, it was abuse that led to wasteful imbalances of our much limited school inputs. As you can see, the educational planning in the Philippines started way back the pre-Spanish era, wherein there are different educational planning that was established by the Spanish and the United States. In 1954, the defunct Congress of the Philippines created the National Board of Education through the Republic Act number 1124. Its board function were: number 1 is to formulate the objectives and basic policies and education in conformity with the Constitution. Number 2 is that coordinate the objectives, functions, and activities of the different types of educational institutions. And lastly, to set up general goals of accomplishment for the entire school system. The board, aside from being the highest policy-making body in education, has been known as the first official planning body of education. Initially, its activities that were concentrated on public school system were integrated with the National Development Plan. Later on, the Republic Act number 4372 amended the Republic Act number 1124 and provided, among others, the following additional function of the National Board of Education. The first one is to establish guidelines, policies, and criteria on the basis which the examination, evaluation, and approval of textbooks by the Board of Textbook shall be made. The second one is to compile educational statistics, keep records on education, conduct researches, surveys, and studies on educational conditions and problems, evaluate the effects of the national educational policies, and undertake such other activities as effectively carry out all purpose of the said act. So that's it. The Republic Act number 1124 was amended by the Republic Act number 4372 as part of the educational system in the Philippines. Just like what I said earlier, educational planning in the Philippines started way back the year of the pre-Spanish era, wherein we are colonized by the Spaniards and also by the United States. Now, these are the more significant ones during the evolution of the Philippines educational planning. The first one is the Monroe Survey in 1925. The second one is the United Nations Economic and Social Commission, UNESCO Mission in 1949. The Joint Congressional Committee on Education Survey of 1949. The Swanson Survey in 1960. The Presidential Commission to Survey the Philippine Education, or the PCSPE, in 1970. And the Congressional Committee on Education, or the EDCOM. It has pointed out by the PCSPE that educational planning is not the strength in Philippine education. This observation is supported by several factors, namely, the first one, lack of the clear definition of the role of education in national development. The second one, the absence of the long-range goal setting performance target for each operational components of educational system. The third one is the absence of the policy guidelines that define the proper function of each educational level of sector. Part 1, the nature of decision-making process of both individuals and educational institution that is based on the forced choice rather than the guided selection. And the last one is the disproportionate magnitude of educational responsibility relative to the capacity of the economy to support the corresponding requirements of educational service. Thus, the promulgation of the President Decree Number 6A, popularly known as the Educational Development Decree of 1992, give emphasis to educational planning and education. The decree provided for that a broad general education will assist each individual to respond effectively to changing needs and conditions of the nation through the system of educational planning and evaluation. By this, the Integrated Reorganizational Plan of 1972 was then put into action by providing an office for planning services in the reorganized structure of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, now the DepEd. Answering the call, the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, the forerunner of the Department of Education, organized two training programs on institutional development planning in cooperation with the Development Academy of the Philippines and the Philippine Association of State Colleges and Universities. The Congressional Commission on Education, or the EDCOM-1 study on 1992, also found out that the quality of the Philippine education was declining continuously. As a result, the EDCOM-1 recommended the restructuring of the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports into three agencies, namely the Commission on Higher Education, which oversees the tertiary and vocational technical education, and the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, or the TESDA, which is responsible for the short-term manpower skills training. And lastly, the Department of Education, Culture, and Sports, which was renamed as the Department of Basic Education, which will take charge of kindergarten, elementary, and secondary education. The Commission on Higher Education came up with the first long-term higher education development plan, which starts from 1996 to 2005. The plan served as the blueprint of change, reform, and innovation in the higher education. Subsequently, the Commission required all of the SUCs and the CHED-supervised institutions in the country to formulate and submit the respective 10-year development plan in the private sector. The preparation of the long-term plan is a requirement for the grant or permit to operate in the college or university. In 2010, then, Senator Benigno Aquino III expressed his desire to implement the K-12 basic education cycle to increase the number of years of the compulsory education to 13 years. According to him, this will give everyone an equal chance to succeed and have quality education and profitable jobs. This is now what we call the K-12 basic education curriculum. After further consultation and studies, the government under the President Aquino formally adopted the K-642 basic education system, 1 year for kindergarten, 6 years for elementary education, 4 years for junior high school, and 2 years for senior high school education. Kindergarten was also formally made compulsory by the virtue of the Kindergarten Education Act of 2012. While the further 12 years were officially put into law by the virtue of the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013. Although DepEd has already implemented the K-12 programs since school year 2011 and 2012, it was still enacted into law to guarantee its continuity in the succeeding years. Now, the launching of the Basic Education Development Plan, or BEDP 2030 last June 2022, is also part of the Philippine educational planning. This provides a strategic roadmap to improve the delivery of the quality basic education. BEDP 2030 is the first long-term plan of the Department of Basic Education, covering the formal education from 5 years old to 18 years old and non-formal education for youth and adults. The BEDP 2030 aims to continue the goals of the department for all Filipinos to revitalize their full potential and contribute meaningfully to a cohesive nation through the protection and promotion of the right to education. BEDP 2030 is also designed to address the immediate impacts of the pandemic on learning, participation and education delivery, address the remaining access gaps, and improve quality and build resilience. BEDP is a part of the administration's effort to ensure that the call for improving the access and quality of basic education will continue, as these are the challenges that were identified by the various researchers. BEDP 2030 was anchored in the Sulong Edukalidad framework to harmonize the strategies with the DepEd. Likewise, the latest in educational planning in the Philippines, the passage into law of the Republic Act Number 11899 last July 2022, which will create a second Congressional Commission on Education, or the ADCOM-2, to review, assess, and evaluate the state of the Philippine education and recommend innovative and targeted policy reforms in education is the part of the latest educational planning. This is to place education at the center of the development policies of the state guided by the national vision on education. The ADCOM 2 shall, number 1, set specific targeted measures and time-bound solutions that are products of a comprehensive assessment and evaluation, effective planning, and a strategic investment in education. The second one, develop a more holistic, harmonized, and coordinated education system through a review of mandates of the three agencies of education, namely the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, and the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority. The third one is that prioritize the adoption of the digital transformation in education and the use of science, technology, and innovation through the promotion of the digital literacy and the development of critical thinking, problem solving, and other related core competencies as part with the global standards. The next one is to promote the development of the 21st century skills, including creativity, communication, collaboration, and social skills, leadership, and initiative. This also institutionalized educational reforms necessary to meet the new challenges to education, such as the implementation of the alternative learning system and delivery modes for basic education, higher education, and the post-secondary technical vocational education, and the training as part of the adjustment and responses to the global pandemic, and at the advent of the fourth industrial revolution, characterized among others by digital revolution or the rapid development of information and technology, such as the artificial intelligence, automation, data analytics, blockchains, data sharing, quantum computing, and the Internet of Things analytics. And the next one, recommend the adoption and institutionalization of relevant and meaningful assessment tools, such as teaching and learning competencies. Assessment tools based on the best global practices, which shall be used by the educational agencies and institutions for their continued monitoring, evaluation, and development. As part of the educational planning in the Philippines, last January 2030, Vice President or Education Secretary Sara Duterte also presented the Basic Education Report of 2023 that the Department of Education will implement to improve the quality education, respond to the challenges, and solve the problems faced by the Filipino students, launching the Matatag, Batang Makabata, Batang Makabansa, which will serve as our guide to new direction of DepEd and stakeholders in solving basic education challenges. Matatag has four critical components. The first one is MAP, or make the curriculum relevant to produce competent and job-ready, active, and responsible citizens. The second one is TA, or take steps to accelerate delivery of basic education facilities and services. The third one is TA also, which stands for take good care of learners by promoting learner well-being, inclusive education, and positive learning environment. And lastly, we have the letter G, which stands give support to teacher to teach better. And that are the evolution of the educational planning in the Philippines, which are characterized by the different planning and implementation of the different policies, which is now later on being developed by the different authorities in the department as well as in the Department of Education. I hope that you've learned something with our first topic for this morning. Since we have already discussed about educational planning in the Philippines, let us now move on to our next topic. Our next topic is all about decentralized educational planning in the Philippines. Before we move on to our topic about decentralized educational planning in the Philippines, let us first discuss what is decentralization. Decentralization is a concept which can be defined as a transfer of or dispersal of decision-making powers accompanied by delegation of authority to individuals or unit at all levels of an organization, even if any are located far away from the power center. According to the Ministry of Education, the decentralized educational planning mobilizes the grassroots participation in planning to support the country's social and economic development objectives. This focuses on social economic, cultural, and resources disparities. Why pursue for decentralization in the Philippines? There are different factors why the Philippines should pursue on the decentralized educational planning. The first one is the educational situation. The second one is the poor quality of education. The shortfalls in classroom, shortfall in textbook and teachers, the low achievement in science, mathematics, and languages. These are result of the different studies of our international communities. The next one is the disparity in rural and urban areas in terms of achievement and the declining participation of the private sectors. These different factors contributes to the educational system. That's why these are factors that should be considered in the decentralization in educational planning in our country. There are different reform programs with the recommendation on decentralization. The first one is the EDCOM 1 1991, which states the repocalization of education for improved governance. It undertook the assessment for education system of the country. The second one is the Philippine Educational Sector Study of 1998, which shows that the demand for local institutions for autonomy from central government to enable them to become more responsive to local problems. And the next one is the Philippine Commission on Education Reform of 2000. And the next one is the RA 7160, or known as the Local Government Code of 1991, which states that there is a need for expanded participation of stakeholders in education. These different educational reforms recommended that there must be a promotion of school-based management as a system of empowering the school to provide leadership and for community that serves to have ownership of the school. The next one is that the repocalization of education was intended to guarantee concentration on basic education and effectiveness in the delivery of basic education. These different reform programs was already being implemented in our educational system. And this is good for us to really understand this decentralized planning and educational system. There are different aspects of decentralization. Decentralization aims to widen the decision-making while increasing the responsibility and accountability. The local government now plays a role in the educational system. The construction, repair, maintenance of school buildings, and other facilities of public, elementary, and secondary school is one of their role now. They also have the budget on such roles that they are playing in the educational system. That is what we call the Special Education Fund, or the SEF. They also need to have the establishment and maintenance of extension classes when necessary. The sport activities at the division, district, and municipal and barangay levels are also one of their roles as a part of the decentralization and educational planning. And this is what we are experiencing nowadays. Local government unit is now playing a very important role in the educational planning. And we can see that in our educational system nowadays. Local government unit plays a vital role as our partners in the different programs and activities of the school. The repair and maintenance, the construction of school building, as well as the support with regard to the different activities of the school is one of their important roles nowadays. The division, the district, the municipal sports activity, they are also one of our partner with regards to that particular activity. And with regards to the decision planning and to the establishment of the different programs and activities, they are the main concerns now that we need to have and the support that we need in order for our project programs and activities to be successful. One of the concepts that is embedded in the decentralization in the educational planning is the shared governance principle. Shared governance principle is the principle which recognizes that every unit and education bureaucracy has a particular role, task, and responsibility inherent in the office, and for which it is principally responsible for the outcomes. Now, since the educational planning system of the Department of Education and also our educational system is now decentralized, these are the different duties and responsibility in a decentralized environment. We are now experiencing this decentralized educational planning. In national office, these are the different duties and responsibilities that they are going to take. The first one is that they are going to formulate the national educational policies. The second one, they need to formulate a national basic education plan. The third one, they need to promulgate a national educational standards, monitor and assess national learning outcomes, undertake national educational research and studies, enhancing the employment status, the professional competence, welfare, and working condition of all personnel of the department, and enhancing the total development of learners through local and national flow programs and projects. Now, let's move on to regional office. Regional office, which is consistent with the national educational policies, plans, and standards. The regional director shall have the authority and accountability and responsibility for the following. The first one is defining a regional educational policy framework, which reflects the values, needs, and expectation of the community they serve. Number two, they need to develop a regional basic education plan. The third one, develop the regional educational standards with a view towards benchmarking for international competitiveness. The fourth one is they need to monitor, evaluate, and assess the regional learning outcomes, the undertaking research projects and development, managing region-wide projects which may be funded through official development assistance and or other agencies. Next is that they should ensure strict compliance with prescribed national criteria for the recruitment, selection, and training of all staff in the region and the division. The seventh one is that they need to formulate, in coordination with the Regional Development Council, the budget to support the regional educational plan. which shall take into account the educational plans of the division and the districts. That they need to determine the organization components of the divisions and districts and approving the proposed staffing pattern of all employees in the division and districts. Next is that they need to hire, place, and evaluate all employees in the regional office except for the position of the assistant director. Next is that they need to evaluate all school division superintendent and assistant division superintendents in the region. Now, these duties and responsibilities in decentralized environment in education is being practiced. As we all know, all of the things that I have already enumerated are different practices that is practiced by the different directors, the regional office, the national offices, with regards to the decentralized environment that we are now having in our educational system. And also, the regional office should plan and manage effectively and efficiently and use all of the personnel, fiscal resources of the regional office, including the professional staff and development. They need also to manage the database and management information system of the region. We are now using the different information system management and databases in our schools. Isn't it right, teachers? Next is that approving the establishment of public and private elementary and high school and different learning centers, and performing such other function as may be assigned by the proper authorities. So these are the different duties and responsibilities with regards to the regional office. Now, we move on to the duties and responsibilities of a decentralized environment on the lower level, which is the division office. So the division office is a division which shall consist of a province or a city, which shall have a school's division superintendent, at least one assistant school's division superintendent, and an office staff for program promotion and planning, as well as administrative, fiscal, legal, ancillary, and other support services. Now, these are the different duties and responsibilities in a decentralized environment with regards to the division office. The first one is that they need to develop and implement a division education development plan. So that's why we have our own plans with regards to our division. The next one, planning and managing the effective and efficient use of personnel, physical, and fiscal resources of the division, including the professional staff developments. So we are all experiencing that in our division. The next one is hiring, placing, and evaluating all division supervisor and school district supervisor, as well as all of the employees in the division, both teaching and non-teaching personnel, including school heads, except for the assistant division superintendent. Next one is that monitoring the utilization of funds provided by the national government and the local government units to the schools and learning centers. Next, we need to ensure the compliance of quality standards of basic education programs. And for this purpose, is strengthening the role of the division supervisor as subject area specialist. Next is that the division or the division office is promoting awareness of and adherence by all schools and learning centers to accreditation standards prescribed by the Secretary of Education. Next is that the division office will supervise the operation of all public and private elementary, secondary, and integrated schools and learning centers. Next is that the division office will be performing other functions as may be assigned by the proper authorities. So these are the functions, the duties and responsibilities with regard to the centralized environment, with regards to the division office. Now, let's move on to school district level. So we are done with the national, region, and the division. Now we are moving on with the next one, the school district level. Upon the recommendation of the school division superintendent, the regional director may establish additional school district within the school division. The school district already existed at the time of the passage of the law shall be maintained. So now we have our duties and responsibilities with regards to the decentralized environment in terms of division or a school district level rather. With regards to duties and responsibilities in decentralized environment in terms of school district level. So what are the duties and responsibilities in a decentralized environment of a school district level? The first one is a school district shall have a school district supervisor and an office staff for program promotion. The school district supervisor shall be responsible for number one, providing professional instructional advice and support to the school heads and teachers or the facilitators of school and learning centers in district or in cluster. The next one is they need to supervise the curriculum and instruction. The third one, performing such other function as may be assigned by the proper authorities. So these are the roles and duties and responsibilities of the school district with regards to the decentralized environment. Now, on the scale level, what are the duties and responsibilities of a school level with regards to decentralized environment? As we all know that decentralization is that giving powers to every unit of the organization or institution. That's why the school level is also given a role or a task and duties and responsibility for them to really understand to manage the school in the grassroots participation. These are the duties and responsibilities of a decentralized environment with regards to school level. The first one is there shall be a school head first for all public elementary schools and public high school or a cluster. The establishment of integrated schools from existing public elementary and public high school shall be encouraged. That's why we have now our integrated schools. There is an elementary and secondary as well as senior high school all together in one school. They are integrated because of this decentralization in educational planning. The school head who may be assisted by an assistant school head shall be both an instructional leaders and administrative manager. The school head shall form a school teacher or learning facilitators for the delivery of quality education, educational programs, projects, and activities as well as services. A core of non-teaching and other staff that shall handle the school administrative, fiscal, and auxiliary services. So these are the duties and responsibilities at school level. The first one, setting the mission, vision, goals, and objectives of the school. So there is a specific mission, visions, and goals of the school that is aligned to our DepEd's mission, vision, and goals. The second one is that creating an environment within the school that is conducive to teaching and learning. I don't know your different experiences with regards to this one, but you can be able to share that after our discussion. The next one is that implementing the school curriculum and being accountable for higher learning outcomes. So that is the school level duties and responsibility with regards to the decentralized environment. So these are the duties and responsibilities in a decentralized environment with regards to our school level. The first one is the setting the mission, vision, goals, and objectives of the school. There is a specific mission, vision, and goals as well as objectives of every school. That's why there is a school management. However, it must be connected with our DepEd's mission, vision, and goals. Next is that creating an environment within the school that is conducive to teaching and learning. So, as we all know, there are different efforts that is being given by the different departments and offices that will ensure that all the teachers and learners will be able to have the teaching and learning process in a conducive to teaching and learning. So this one is also an important things in a decentralized environment because everybody is working together to achieve one goal. Next is that implementing the school curriculum and being accountable for higher learning outcomes. So that's why we have our professional development, we have our different training and programs, as well as our professional growth and development programs that will help us to implement the school curriculum and being accountable for our different programs, projects, and activities that is aligned with the objective sets by our school, that is aligned also to the programs, projects, and activities of the division as well as by the Department of Education. The next one is that developing the school education program and the school improvement plan. That's why there is what we call annual improvement plan or AIP, SIP or the school improvement plan. And the next one, we are going to have the offering educational programs. There are different projects and services which provide equitable opportunity for all learners in the community. That's why we have different projects and programs being implemented in our school level. What are your programs and activities that is very significant in the teaching and learning outcomes of the students? And how these programs give opportunities for all kinds of learners, diba? We have different intervention programs, and these different intervention programs are different projects wherein we can be able to grasp and to solve the different issues and problems with regards to our students as well as with our learning communities. Next is that introducing new and innovative modes of instruction to achieve higher learning outcomes. We teachers are very flexible. We can do different things. We can innovate. We are resourceful. And this is because we want to achieve higher learning outcomes. The next one is administering and managing all personal, physical, and fiscal resources of the school. Next is that recommending the staff complement of the school based on its needs. Next, encouraging staff development. We are being encouraged to pursue higher education for our professional development. Next, establishing school and community network in encouraging the active participation of teachers, organization, and academic personnel of the public school, and Parenting Teachers Community Association. That's why we are reaching out our community with the support and encouragement, as well as we are motivating them to participate and to be involved in the different programs and activities of the school because it is included in the vision and mission of the Department of Education, wherein our stakeholders, our parents play a very important part in the learning outcomes of our students. That's why these duties was given to us because we are in the grassroots level. We are in the grassroots level. We can be able to reach out those parents and our community for them to support us with our different educational planning that will give and that will result to a higher level of educational outcomes with regards to our students. Accepting donation, gifts, bequests, and grants for the purpose of upgrading teachers, learning facilitator competency, improving and expanding school facilities, and providing instructional material and equipment. Such donation or grants must be reported to the appropriate district supervisor and division superintendents. That's why we have what we call Adapa School. We have the Brigada Escuela, wherein this is the different ways on how we can be able to achieve full participation of our community and the involvement of the different stakeholders with regards to educational planning and our educational system with regards to school-based management. Next is that performing such other function that may be assigned by the proper authority. So as you can see, the different duties and responsibilities in the decentralized environment are very well equipped nowadays. We are performing our very best in order to perform the duties and responsibilities that is accompanied by decentralization and educational planning.
Thank you for listening, and this would be my references for my entire report. Thank you and God bless.